Hello everybody, this is Annie, one of your admins, and I am going to do a tutorial video on the updated sample cross in locking filet crochet or LFC. So we'll just wait a minute or so to see if any one of you out there will join me, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, you can download the pattern. It is called Sample Cross, Step 1 for Beginners, on Lissa's web store. And you can find that at www.lissaconleydesigns.com. And if you go to the search box and type Sample Cross, you'll come up with the link to the pattern, and you can just click it. It's a free pattern download. So you'll need that if you want to crochet along with me. You will also need 2 different colors of yarn, one in a contrasting color. You'll need a crochet hook for that yarn, and today I am going to use a 5.5 millimeter or size I crochet hook. And some optional things you'll need are stitch markers, and this is called a knit clip, a mini knit clip, but that's optional. Okay, we'll just wait just a little while longer. If you are joining us live, just say hi and where you're watching from. And if you are joining us later and watching a replay of this video, you can just type in the comments that this is a replay, and you can also put where you're watching from. Again, we're doing the sample cross in LFC. Okay, I just see a couple of people watching. We'll just go ahead and get started. If you're going to join us later, you can watch from the beginning and catch up. So let's look at the pattern. And I know some of you are going to ask, this is an iPad. This is my iPad, and I have the pattern on my Books app, and it just lets me flip through the pattern, and I can actually mark off where I'm at in each part of the row in the written instructions. So let's begin. And we are going to start with the beginning of the sample pattern. And in the instructions, it says to use your main color and chain 29, and in parentheses it has a red number 28. If you read the starting instructions on the previous page, it'll tell you what that number means, but basically it's your personal preference if you want to have a chain 4 here on the side stitches or a chain 3. If you want to do a chain 3, then you do the number in the red parentheses. I always do the chain 3, so I'm going to chain 28. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23. And that was 28 chains. Now the next part of the instructions say to double crochet in the 7th parentheses 6th chain from the hook. And remember, I'm doing the one in parentheses, so I'm going to double crochet into my 6th chain from the hook. And that's this right here. And you've made the first box or the first window in this pattern. Some people like to call them windows. Can you see that okay? All right, the next set of the part of the instructions say to chain 1, skip a chain, double crochet in the next chain, and you repeat that pattern ending with a double crochet in the very last stitch. So again, it's a chain 1, skip a chain, and then double crochet in the next chain, and you do that to the end. Chain 1, skip a chain, double crochet in the next one. I'll do that once more. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next, and do that to the end. This yarn is not cooperating. Oh, I'm going to redo that. Now, if you are working on one of the bigger projects that has several hundred chains, I would recommend that for every 10 chains that you do, you put a stitch marker. And that way you don't lose count as easily. It's easy to count by 10s or by 5s or 20s or however many you want to space them out. But since this one just has 28 chains, I'm not putting a stitch marker in it. I will show you a little bit later on what I'm going to use a stitch marker for, though. Again, we're doing a chain 1, skip 1 chain, and double crochet. To the end, and there's my last chain stitch right there. And what I'm going to do is, and if you look at the pattern, you'll notice that it says that there's already the chain 3 right here that is going to be the side stitch for the beginning of the next main color row, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 3. And this is what I use this mini knit clip for, and you can get this at most craft stores. You can even get it on Amazon. You can order it online. It's called a mini knit clip. And I just put it through that loop right there, and that way I don't accidentally pull it all out. It just keeps my stitch right there. All right, so the instructions say to set this aside, but let's count this just to make sure we are on track. So we chained 28 and then double crocheted into the 6th chain from hook, and that was this one right here. And then we chained 1, skipped a chain and double crocheted, chain 1, skip a chain, and then double crocheted into the next chain, and we did that all the way to the end. And that should give us 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 double crochets. So let's take a look at the pattern. We just did the main color, and you can see that that's indicated by MC in the pattern. So every main color will have MC right here, every main color row. We just did 13 double crochets, and if you look at the end of the row, this number 13 in parentheses, that's going to tell you how many double crochets you need for that row. So we don't, while we call these boxes or windows, we don't really count the number of boxes or windows. What we do is we provide you the number of double crochets you're going to have in this main color row. And again, that is the number that is in the parentheses at the end of every main color row. You see that 13 right there, and we have 13 double crochets right here. Okay, let's go back to where we were. The next thing we do is we set this aside. This is our main color, and we're going to use the accent color, or AC, and we are going to chain 26, and that is the number in parentheses. Again, I am using the number in parentheses because I am going to chain 3 at the end instead of chain 4. So let's chain 26. Let's make sure that's 26. Okay. Now in the instructions it says you may want to add stitch markers every other chain link. You could do that, but I'm not going to do that. But you can. And it says take the tail of your AC chain and slide it through the back of the far right hole of the MC work. So what I'm going to do is use that little tail end right here and slide it through the back. Like this. Now if you look at the picture in the pattern, it's woven in and out through the MC row that we just finished, the foundation row. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I have the video playing or showing here on my iPad on the side, but I'm not really looking at it to see if there are any questions. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and post it in a comment. I will answer it later, or if one of our other admins just happens to be online and watching this video along with me, they can hop on in and answer it. But otherwise, just go ahead and post your questions in the comment, and one of us will get to it later. Okay, so I've wound it through, And if you can see, it's like kind of twisted, so I'm going to try to make it to where it's not all twisted in there. Now, if you find this a little bit harder to do, I made a video earlier, I don't know, could have been over a year ago now, on the chainless foundation that some people find a little bit easier than this. You can find the link to that video. It's posted in the comments beneath the frequently asked questions posted in announcements. And that seems to help people. Okay, this is what it should look like. So what we've done is we've wound that AC chain through that foundation MC row that we just finished. Now let me point out another thing. So I'm looking at my work. So this is going to be the front as I crochet, and if there's anything that says back, which we'll go over as we go through the pattern, this is going to be the back side. So the front is when I'm looking at it, and the back, like if I'm going to crochet through the back, it's away from me. Now that is different from saying this is the front of the work and this is the back side. The front side will always be the front side that you started with. The back side will always be the back side, like the wrong side. But when we are going to do like a front stitch or a back stitch, the front stitch will always be going from the side closest to you, and the back stitch will always be the side away from you. And if that's confusing now, it'll get clearer hopefully as we go through these stitches. Okay, so now we've done this part. So the next page says, oh, we've already woven in the AC tail. And now it says we are set up to begin row 1 AC front of work. All right, so row 1 AC front of work, which is also shown below in the written instructions. So what you'll notice with these patterns, with Lissa's patterns, is she has a diagram, these picture diagrams and instructions on doing the row 1 AC front of work. But we also have it, she also has it where it's actually written out as row 1 AC front of work. So some people get confused and think, why are there 2 row 1s? There aren't 2 row 1s. There's 1 row 1. It's just an illustrated part right here in the beginning, just to show you how it's done. And then it's also just written out in the written part of the pattern. But that's not to say that you do 2 row 1s. And I think I just took out one of my chains. Let me count this real quick. I might have. Oops. Sorry about this. Give me a second. I did. Okay, let's get this back in here. And I guess this can be a good review if you needed to see that again. So let's go ahead and pull that through. Okay, now we're ready to begin row 1. So instructions say double crochet in the 6th chain from hook. Remember, I'm doing the one in parentheses by going through the back window of the MC work. So we are going through the back right here. So we've essentially already done this first window right here, because part of this chain that we made in the AC color is this side stitch already. Do you remember when we did the main color and we did that double crochet in that 6th chain from hook? We've completed that first window. So we're also going to do the same thing with the AC, and we're going to go here, and it kind of looks like it's in this second MC window right there. So let's find the 6th chain from hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's this one. This is my 6th chain. This one right here. Let me just go ahead and make it be the one right in front of my thumbnail right there. That's what I'm going to double crochet into, and it says by going through the back. So through the back means like this. You see how I'm inserting my hook right here, and I'm going through the back. Remember when I said if you go through the front is always the one closest to you, and the back is always the one away from you for the front and back stitches. So this is a back stitch, and I'm going from the back right here into that 6th chain, and I'm making a double crochet. All right. Now here's where the stitch marker comes along. As you do these first rows, the foundation, main color, and then row 1 in AC, it's easy to flip your work. Meaning it's easy when you turn around, you accidentally go like this, and you start crocheting this way instead of turning it completely and crocheting back the other way, which is what you're supposed to do. So to remember which side goes up, I am going to take a stitch marker, and it really doesn't matter which stitch you put it in because it's just to hold it, but I'm going to put it where the top of the row of this MC row will be, and I'm just also going to put it through that AC right there, just to hold them together, so that when I turn it around, it stays together and I don't accidentally do this and try to flip it. And if I try to flip it, like if I do that unintentionally and I try to flip it, then I see, oh, that's wrong, because look, the part where I put the stitch marker was supposed to be the top of my work. And right now, if I did it like that, that's on the bottom. So some people might find that helpful, to not accidentally flip it around. So we'll just put that right there. Okay, so we did the first double crochet in the 6th chain from hook, and it was a back stitch. That means we went from the back and did that double crochet. Now you're always going to, for whatever color you're using, AC always gets crocheted into another AC. You never crochet an AC into an MC or an MC into an AC. If you've done that, then you know you've kind of done something wrong. Now let's continue reading the instructions. It says you have now made your first 2 DCs of the AC work. So the first one was this side part right here, these chain stitches that count as a double crochet. Can you see that right here? And then the second DC was this very first one that we made in the 6th chain from hook. So that's your first 2 DCs of the AC work. This first DC is called an inside, this first DC right here, this one. is called an inside stitch back, ISB. This next double crochet is called a back because we did it from the back side. So that is called a back stitch. So again, this side stitch right here is called an inside stitch because it's in the inside. This main color is the outside. This is going to be on the inside of that. You'll see how they line up as we go along. Inside stitch, back, and this is a back stitch. Okay, let's continue. The next, where am I? Okay. Now, chain one, skip a chain space, and then do a back double crochet in the next chain. Chain one, skip a chain, do a back in the next chain. Repeat this process, ending with a double crochet in the last chain. So for this row, for row one, they're all back stitches. And if you can see, let me move this forward. Row one, we just did the inside stitch back, and then we're going to do 10 back stitches, and then an inside stitch back again. So let's go ahead and do that. So we did one, this is the inside stitch back, this one right here. We're supposed to do 10 back stitches, and this was the first one, and let's go ahead and do that. So we chain one, we're going to skip one. Okay, can't really see that clearly. Let's see if I can show that to you. You can see this is the stitch where we did that double crochet right here. You can see that double crochet right there. Then we are going to see it clearer right there. We're going to skip this one. We're going to skip this one. Okay, I apologize if this is hard to see. Skip this and then do a double crochet into this one from the back. Okay, so I'm going to put a stitch marker right there. We're skipping that and we're going to do a double crochet into this one right here. Okay, now I'm going to maneuver that in this next window, just so it's easier for you to see it right there. Okay, so remember when we started, we went into this first main color window, the first double crochet went in the second window. Now we're in this third window right here, and we're going to do another back stitch. There you see that stitch marker that I inserted right there. So I'm coming from the back, crochet hook coming from the back into that stitch. Can you see that? And that stitch marker just dropped out. And then do that double crochet. So I'm kind of going slow for this first row so that you can see what the stitches are and where they're supposed to go. And then as we do the next few rows, we'll go a little bit faster. Okay, and we're supposed to chain one and do another skip. It's easier to see this now because it's in front. We're going to skip and then do another back double crochet in the next one. So, and again, we're going into this window now because we just did, let me show you that. Can you tell? We just went into this window. You see these two main colors right there? That was a window right there. And the next window we're going to do is this window right here. So we are going to skip this chain and then chain from the back into this chain. I've already did my chain one. And I go in from the back into that chain and do a double crochet. Chain one. Okay, everybody see that? You see how these are all back stitches? You see how it's behind? It's kind of behind this main color row. You know that it's a back stitch when it's behind it. Remember I said front is always facing you and back is always away from you. So these double crochets are behind this main color row, and you know these are back stitches because of that, just by looking at it, okay? So let's go ahead and finish those back stitches to the end of the row. We were supposed to do 10. I've done 3. Remember, this first one right here at the end is called an inside stitch back. So let's finish our 10. So that's 3. We have to do 7 more. Okay, I see Lissa is on. Hi, Lissa. Vanessa. I see a few other people watching. Okay, let's continue. So I've done my chain 1, and there is I'm going to skip that chain right there. See that? And I'm going to double crochet into this next one right here, this one. Let's make sure that was in the correct window. So that one went into these two. This one is in between these two. This one is in between these two. This one is in between these two. Yep, I'm good to go. Okay, now let's do the next one. There was my double crochet right there. So I'm going to skip this and go from the back into this next chain right here. Again, back, I'm coming from the back side into that chain. Okay. Let's make sure that I'm not going to miss another window or miss a window. I'm good. I'm just kind of aligning making sure that this AC chain doesn't get pulled so that I mess up my count. And then the next window I should be going into or working in between are these two right here. So if I look right there, there's my double crochet. So I'm going to skip, you can see it easier if I do this. I'm going to skip this one and double crochet into this one. So skip, double crochet. Sorry, if I get too close to the camera, it's hard to crochet and try to video at the same time. Okay. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got to do 4 more. And I hope I'm not going too fast for those who are trying to learn this. So the next one I am going to skip so you can see again that I've done the double crochet into this chain right here. Now I'm going to skip that chain and do a back double crochet into this one right here in between these two main color double crochets into, like it's in this window right there, okay? So let's get that. So right here, coming again from the back, it is a back stitch. Now, this row 1 is all back stitches. Let me just go ahead and show you what a front stitch looks like so you know what the difference is. And then we'll take that out and we'll continue on correctly with the back stitch. But so this is just to show you what a front stitch looks like and it's the wrong stitch for this pattern, but just to show you. So if I were to do a front stitch, so this is, remember I said the front is always closest to you. So instead of doing the back stitch where we're coming from the back into the chain, this is a front stitch. So I did my yarn over, and now I'm coming in from the front like this. See the front and into the chain like this. And then I work the double crochet. Oops, let me do that again. Front, and then do the double crochet. So this is what the front stitch looks like. And you see how it lays in front of the main color? That's also another reason why it's called a front stitch, and it'll be indicated by an F in the pattern. But this is not what we want. So you can see how that looks wrong. That is not what the pattern looks like. But I just wanted to show you a front stitch so you know the difference between the front and the back. This front stitch, we worked from the front, and it lays, when you finish the stitch, it lays in front or on top of the main color row. This back stitch, we've worked from the back, and it lays behind the main color row. See that? So these are back stitches right here in the AC. So let's go ahead and take this out because we know that's wrong. But I just wanted to show you the difference between the back stitch and the front stitch. So I've already chained one. Now let me find where I'm supposed to go into next. So I skip this chain right here, and I'm going to double crochet right here. So from the back, and I am in the back, I'm behind the main color. There we go. Next one. Let's make sure that stays where it's supposed to. Okay, now I'm going to go here because you can see I've done the double crochet right there. I'm going to skip this chain, and I'm going to double crochet in this chain right there. Okay, from the back, go from the back into that chain, and you know you've done it correctly because it is behind the MC, and that is a back stitch. Okay, next one, I've already did my chain one. Now let's find the next, where the next stitch is going to go. So skip this one, double crochet into this one. And that was a back. And you know it was back because it's behind the MC. Chain one. And you see why I was always kind of tugging this? And what you can also do for the bigger patterns, you can use stitch markers to just keep these in place. Sometimes I do that. We're already at the end, so this is kind of unnecessary, but if you have a longer project, I would go ahead and just like hold them in place so the tail of this AC row doesn't move. So you can see where I'm going to go through one of the MC stitches into an AC stitch right there, like that, and just put that stitch marker so that way this tail here doesn't keep scooting and it might mess up your count. And then when you get to the end of the row, you say, oh, I'm short, but you probably were just off. That it just adjusted itself and then you just went into the wrong stitch. So stitch markers really help. All right, so how many did we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've done our 10. So now the last one we're going to do is an inside stitch back. So what that is you just do a double crochet, and it's called the inside stitch because it's at the very end of the row, and back because we're coming in from the back like this. And if I look at this chain right there, that's the chain where I did my double crochet. I'm going to skip that and I'm going to double crochet in this one. It just happens to be the very last stitch, and that is also how you know you're going to do an inside stitch, because it's the last one. And it was back, so I went from the back. And I already know that I'm going to have my starting double crochet at 3 chain when I turn my work, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it now. Okay. And get another mini knit clip. Do I have one? Oh, I don't have one with me. I'll just use a stitch marker. And that way I know that that's not going to come out. Okay, so I've just finished the foundation main color row and row 1 in AC. So just to reiterate, in Lissa's patterns, she will have a diagram of how to do row 1, and she will also have the actual row 1 written. You don't repeat that twice. You don't do another row 1. You've just finished it. So we've just done the inside stitch back. We've just done the inside stitch back, 10 back stitches, and another inside stitch back, and then we're going to turn our work. And now let's look at this number in parentheses. It says 12. Your AC row will always be 1 stitch less than your MC, so your MC will have 13. DCs, and your MC will have 12. And let's go ahead and count that just to make sure. And when you count the DCs, you count the side stitches as a DC. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We've got 12. So we're good in our counts. So just another explanation of why in the AC row this is called an inside stitch. And you can see it more clearly now that we've finished that entire row 1. When you look at the MC and the AC, you'll see that the AC is always going to be inside of your MC. You see how that's inside right there? And then now you can see as if I pull these up, the AC is always inside of your MC. That's why this is called an inside stitch, and this is called the side stitch. It'll be on the outside. So now we're going to turn our work, and we turn it like this. That is what the back side looks like, or the wrong side. And that's the front side, or the right side. Okay? Don't turn your work like this. Do not do that, because then you will end up trying to turn your AC like this and get it to work, and then you're going to say, oh, what happened? It's not working out. But remember when we put that stitch marker in the very beginning to show that this is the top? That should remind you, like, oh, I flipped it. It should be this way. And you should have flipped it like this. Turn it. Okay? So now let's go ahead and work our row 2. So row 2 is an MC back of work. Okay? So this is our main color. And it says move AC to the back. for row 2. And if you're following along, take a look at your pattern. Row 2, back of work, move AC to the back. What does that mean? Pretty simple. Let me move my AC here and my MC to the right now. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to work my MC, and it says move the AC to the back. So I'm moving it. Remember, back is always away. So I'm moving it to the back. I'm not going to work with that. You see how now this is behind the MC? That's what it means when it says move AC to the back. If AC were in the front, it'll be like this, and that would be wrong. Okay, we want to move AC to the back. That means it's behind the MC, like this. Okay? So let's keep that AC out of the way, because we are working now with our MC. Let's take that clip off. All right, I've already done that initial chain 3. And when I did that chain 3, let's go closer here. It says, look at row 2. Chain 4, parentheses 3, I'm doing the one in parentheses, so chain 3 for the side stitch. Note, I already did this in the first photo, and I already did that in mine. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. I've already done my chain 3. Now it says, continuing with the instructions, do a back stitch. So I'm going to do a back stitch right here. So back, remember, you always crochet into your same color, so MC into MC. So with the AC in back, my next stitch is this one right here, this double crochet. So I'm going to do a back stitch because it says B. That means 1 back stitch. And then you always do a chain 1. It doesn't say it in the instructions, but you're always going to chain 1 in between your double crochets. And then you're going to do 9 front stitches. So remember earlier I showed you how to do a front. So now we're coming in from the front. I'm going to find the top of that double crochet right here. There it is. Coming in from the front, and I'm going to double crochet into that. So look at my hook. I'm only double crocheting into that main color double crochet stitch. I am not going to double crochet into the stitch and around, you see that yarn? I'm not going to go around this AC because that would be wrong. You see that? That's going to be wrong. So let's take that out. Let's find the top of that double crochet. It's a front stitch, so I'm coming in from the front. And only that MC, like this. So you see how I did not crochet around this AC? This is completely free of it. I'm only doing that double crochet into the MC right here. Now let's finish it and you can see it better. Do the chain 1 right now. There we go. You see the front stitch? And you know it's a front stitch because it's laying on top of that AC row. And you can see that this double crochet, it's in the main color double crochet right from the row beneath it. And it is not around this AC. If you have it around this one, you've done it wrong. Let's look at that again. So we're supposed to do 9 fronts. So that was 1. I've already chained 1. So let's do the next one, and it's going to go into this next double crochet right here. Let's find the top, and it's a front, so I'm coming from the front. See my hook? It's coming from the front, and front is closer to you. Back would be like this, away from you, coming from the back. But we're doing a front stitch, so we're going from the front into the top of that double crochet, and only that double crochet. See that? And you know it's a front because it lays on top of the AC. So that was 2. Okay. Now let me go over again, and I've said this earlier, but just in case anyone is still confused. When we were doing the front and the back stitches, the way you work your stitch is this. This is front, from the front, and this would be back, from the back. In this case, for the front and back stitches, from the front is always the side closest to you. From the back is always the side away from you. Now, if you remember, row 2 is a main color back of work. What back of work means is this is the back side or the wrong side. This will always be back of work. As you look at it, it will always be the back of work or the wrong side, and this will always be the front of work or the right side. That is different from when we do the front stitch and the back stitch, because the way you do the front like this is always the side closest to you, and when you do it from the back, back is always away from you. I hope that makes sense. So let's go ahead and continue. Just watch as I do this. We are going to do 7 more front stitches. And we always go main color into main color. And thanks to Jennifer, she is one of our admins, for answering questions. I'm not paying attention to any of the comments, so please, if we don't have any other admin answering them, if one of us has to go away for whatever reason and do something, just post your question in the comments, and we will be sure to answer them later. But thanks, Jen, for answering. Lissa, if you're answering, I don't see it. Okay, so you can see these are front stitches. They're laying in front or on top of the AC, so you know that they are fronts. And we were supposed to do 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Got to do 2 more. Nine. Then we do a back stitch. So if you recall, back goes from the back into the stitch. And you know it's a back stitch because it's laying behind that AC. Okay, see that? And our last stitch is a side stitch. So for the main color side stitches, I'm going to take this off now. For the side stitches, you can do it a couple of different ways, and this is entirely up to you. You can either go just directly into that space right here, and just do a double crochet. Or if you want, you can actually count like what would be the top of that double crochet. So this chain here at the bottom would have been that chain one space in between the double crochets, and then you can count 3, 1, 2, 3, and go on top inside that stitch right there. But to me, that's just a little too tedious to do that. So you can do that like inside the actual chain. I just go into the space right there, because as you go further along into the pattern, it'll line itself up. So just do that side stitch into that space. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my chain 3 right now, so that I don't have to do it when I start the next row after I turn. There we go. So this is what the back of the work looks like after you've done that main color row, and that was row 2. Okay. So now let's do row 3. Row 3 is still the back of the work, because we don't turn yet. So you kind of do these in pairs. You do an MCAC for the front of the work, then you do an MCAC at the back of the work. So now we're doing the AC back of work. And we are going to chain 3, which I did already for the inside stitch back. And then we're going to do 10 front stitches. And remember, AC always into AC, MC always into MC. So this is a front, so we're doing it this way from the front. And we're going to do 10. And you know it's the front because it's laying on top of the MC. Again, front goes from the front. See that? Look at my crochet hook going from the front. Again, going from the front. And we're doing 10 of those. So we've done 5. If it helps, you can kind of like push this AC stitch kind of through that window. Kind of makes it easier. Or when you come from the front, insert it into the top of that double crochet and use your hook to kind of like pull it through that window. Two, 4, 6, 8. I have 2 more to do. And then I do a side stitch. And this should actually be a side stitch back. Okay, because when we turn our work, let me put a stitch marker there so I don't lose, so that doesn't come out. Oh, yep, it does. Inside stitch back. I was reading the wrong row, sorry. Okay, it's an inside stitch back. So let's look at the front stitches again. The front stitch will lay on top of the MC, and you know that that's a front stitch because of that. And this is an inside stitch back, and you know it's a back because it's behind the MC. You can see that on this other end, this is an inside stitch back because it's behind the MC. And that is what row 3 looks like. So now we are going to turn our work. Okay, I hope I'm still going. That was my daughter calling. See if I can get my husband to give her a call back to see what she was calling about. Okay, let's get back to this. So we're now on row 4. Which is an MC front of work. So now we're going to do this MC, and we're back on the front of the work, and we are going to move the AC to the back. So remember when we moved AC to the back? Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. There's something going on in the background of my house. Okay. Where was I? Row 4. Sorry for all these distractions. So main color front of work. This is our front of work. We're going to use our main color, and we are going to move the AC to the back. So we've moved it to the back like this. See that? Okay, I'm going to take this stitch holder off. I've already done my chain 3. And and this is the side stitch. So after this point on, you're not going to see those numbers in parentheses. It's not going to tell you chain 4 or in parentheses chain 3. It's just going to say side stitch. So you just do whatever your preference is, whether it's a chain 3 or chain 4, and you just know that that is the side stitch you just made. Okay, so this is side stitch. I've already done that. Now I'm going to do a front. It says front, back, front. So front, back. Now watch this. Okay, I'm coming underneath that AC, finding my next MC double crochet. I'm coming from the back because it's a back stitch, and I'm crocheting from the back. Can you see that? Now let's do the front. So I'm going into this MC double crochet right here. I'm making sure I'm not crocheting around this AC. That's a front. Okay. So let me go ahead and mark off my pattern. If you notice, I can actually write on this. I mentioned this earlier in the beginning of the video, but I am using an iPad, and I opened up the PDF in the Books app, and it allows me to go ahead and mark on the pattern. So the next one is back 5. So let me show you that again. So I'm coming from back. This is the next stitch I'm going to go into. So I'm going to go underneath that AC from the back. and go into the top of that double crochet. And you can see I'm doing the double crochet from the back. It is behind this AC. Okay, you see that? That is a back stitch. And you know it's a back stitch because it's behind the AC. I'm supposed to do 5 of those, so let's go ahead and do that. This is number 2. This is number 3. See that? Number 4, coming in from the back. And number 5. Okay. There are those 5 stitches behind the AC, so you know those are back stitches. Then I do front, back, front. So front. Make sure you don't catch that AC right there. Back. And front. And then I do a side stitch. And I'm just going to go into the space. And do my chain 3. So I've just finished row 4, front of work. Untwist my yarn here. Okay. These are front stitches. These are back stitches that lay behind the AC. And these 2 right here are front stitches that are in front of the AC. Okay? This is a side stitch. And if it's an AC color, this is an inside stitch. Okay. I hope everyone's good so far. Give me a thumbs up if you're watching and you're good to go. Okay, let's do, I'm going to do a couple more of these rows slowly, and then I'll probably just end after that and not finish the entire cross because that would take forever. But let's just do a couple more of these rows rather slowly, working through the side stitches, inside stitches, fronts and backs. Okay? So now we are on row 5. We are doing the AC, front of work, and front of work again means this is the right side. I'm going to take my stitch marker off. And since I've already done my chain 3, I've already done the inside stitch back. And then I do back 2. So finding the next stitch is right here, coming from the back. Find the top of that stitch and work the double crochet from the back. And you know it's a back stitch because it lays behind the MC row that we just finished. And I'm supposed to do 2 of that. So that's 1. The next one, again, from the back into that double crochet right there. And again, it lays behind the MC, so you know you've done your back stitch correctly. Then I do a front and a back, coming from the front. Do not go around this MC right there, just the AC. Okay, you see how I did not catch that MC right there? And that is front. And you know it's a front because again it's laying on top of the MC. And I'm supposed to do a back. So now I'm coming from behind like this into the top of that stitch. And it's a back because, or you know it's a back because it lies behind that MC. Okay? So I've done the front and back. Now I do front times 2. Okay, so front 1. And 2. Sometimes if you're doing some of the bigger projects and you might have so many of these that don't interlock with the MC, like these do right here, we call those pockets. And if it helps you, you can use those stitch markers and put them, like have this DC that you just finished, this front stitch, and you know it goes in between those 2 MC double crochets right there. Just take a stitch marker and just lock them together. So that way you don't mess up and skip a window, and then when you get to the end of the row, your count is off. So that's just another technique if you're working with what we call pockets. And again, pockets are large areas where they don't interlock, but we don't have that problem with this cross sample. So I'm just going to take that stitch marker off. But that's just a little tip there. So we've just done our front 2, and now I have to do a back front. Okay, so back, again coming from the back, find my stitch, there it is, and go only into that stitch. Oops. That was a back, and now I do a front. Find my stitch, there it is. I'm going to kind of push it through to help me along. Go from the front, and only that stitch, not around. Be careful not to go around the MC. And there I've got the front. And now I do 2 backs. Come from the back. The next one, come from the back, find my stitch, there it is. And you know it's the back stitch because it lies behind the MC. And then an inside stitch back. So coming from the back, just find that space right there. Do your inside stitch, and then I'm going to do my chain 3. Put that stitch marker so I don't lose that stitch. We've just completed row 5. And this was the front of work. Okay. Let's do another. Let's do one more set. We'll do a back of work, rows 6 and 7. So when we turn our work, we turn like this. Okay. We do not turn like that, because then you'll work upside down. But because we've actually kind of finished several rows, that won't be a problem, because you know that that's obviously upside down because that's where you ended. But this is important to remember when you're first starting out your foundation row and maybe rows 1 and 2, that you don't flip it like this, because it's easy to flip it and be upside down. When we turn our work, that's how you turn your work. Okay? So we've just completed an AC row. Now we are going to do an MC row. And how do you know you just finished an AC row? Well, because if you look at it, on the very top is AC. And right beneath that, is the MC. So you know that what has to come on top of this one now to sit right here is an MC row. So since this AC is at the very top, that's just finished an AC row. So now you know, oh, I'm going to be on an MC row. There it is. So row 6 says MC back of work. So this is the back of the work, or the wrong side. And another way to know that that's the wrong side is you zoom out, you find the graph of the whole pattern, which Lissa includes in every one of her patterns, and you compare. So this is the back of my work, and it doesn't look like anything here. But if I turn it around the other way, you can start to see that, oh yeah, there's the pattern. You see this bottom border right here? We've done that right there. And you see that white spot right there? We've done that right there. So this is the front of the work. If you have any questions like, oh, which is the front of my work and which is the back of my work, just take a look at the graph. It's a good reference. Let's go back to the pattern. We are in row 6. Okay, now we're going to work a main color, back of work. So here's our main color. And it says move the AC to the back. So moving the AC to the back, you push that away from you. Remember, back is always away from you. And you bring the MC to the front, which is always closest to you. And it should look like this, with the MC in the front and the AC in the back. And you just forget about that AC for a little bit. Okay. Let's get my yarn. All right. Okay, side stitch. I've already done that. That was my chain 3 side stitch. Then the next is a back and then a front. So there's the next DC I'm going to work into. Let's move that AC back to the back. I'm going to do a back stitch. Come on, AC, cooperate. There we go. And then I'm going to do a front. This is my next stitch. Coming from the front, like this. Now remember, we only crochet into the MC and not through both the MC and the AC. So this is what is correct, what I've just done. This is the incorrect way to do it. You go into the double crochet stitch from the front, and you see how my yarn goes around that AC also, like this. You see that? You see how it's getting crocheted together? That is not what you want to do. You see that? Look how it's crocheted together, how I can't get this apart. See that? That is not the correct way to do that stitch. You go through the front and you kind of pull it through that window right there. You make sure your yarn is not going to go around this AC, like so. You see that? It did not go around it. You can still pull that free. And then you do your double crochet. See that? This is the correct way to do that. All right, I did a front and back, or a back and then a front, and then I do 7 backs. So let's do our 7. So come from the back. One. Come from the back. 2. Come from the back. 3. Come from the back. 4. Come from the back. 5. See, from the back. 'Come from the back. 6. Last one. Come from the back. And back is always the side away from you. And that should be 7. Let's make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you know they're back stitches because they're behind that AC row from the previous row. See that? And you can easily see that this is a front stitch because it's in front of the AC. These are back stitches. See that? Okay, and then I do a front and then a back. Front coming, again, front is always closest to you, so come from the front. Do not catch that AC right there. Do not. Then back. Okay, front and back. And then a side stitch. I'm just going to go inside this loop right here. Right there. And remember how I said as you go further along, it'll line itself up. You don't need to go into the actual chain unless you want to of those side stitches. Look how it's lining itself up. You see how it's getting straight? And I'm not even going into the chain, just into the space. And that will also line itself up. It kind of looks, this part, this AC kind of looks crooked now, this inside stitch. But as you keep going, it'll line itself up, just like how those have right there. Okay? So this is the completion of row 6, the back of your work, and we just finished an MC row. How do you know you just finished an MC row? Because it's the row that's on the very top. MC. I just finished an MC row because my MC is at the very top. Now let's do one more to finish this out. And it's still the back of the work. Are we still the back of the work? Let's look. I think so. Yep. And we are on row 7. AC back of work. And I've already done my inside stitch back with those 3 chains. And I do now front 2. So come front is closest to you. Just did front 2. And now I do back 6. So I'm coming in from the back. And this is number 2, coming in from the back. Number 3. Number 4, from the back. You may be wondering, how do I know which stitch to put this in? It's easy if you can see, like if the stitch you're going into is a front stitch right here, or that's laying on top like this. It's easy to see that double crochet. But if you're, been crocheting for a day or so, you already can kind of tell which is a double crochet stitch just by the way it looks. So I know that I already know I'm going into this stitch right here, which if you look at it from this side, it is the double crochet that I'm going into. So for LFC, you're never going to crochet into the chain 1 space in between. You're always going to do a double crochet into a double crochet. See that? It's always into the double crochet stitches. You never crochet into these chain 1 spaces. Okay, I was supposed to do 6 back. Did I do 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did. And now I do 2 front. Again, front is coming from the side closest to you, so it's this side. So I go this way. There's 1. And 2. And then I do an inside stitch back. So coming from the back, just crochet into that space right there. And do my chain 3, setting up for the next row. Okay, and there we've just finished row 7, an AC row, and I know it's AC because if I lay it flat, it's on top of my work. So I've just finished an AC row, row 7, back of work. Looks like this. And if I turn it around, it's starting to form the pattern. Let's take a look at the graph to make sure we are on track. And you can see that now the bottom part of the pattern, this pattern right here, we just started to do this part right there. You can see it clearly like this. Another good tip is every few rows, I like to do it basically every 2 rows, if not every row, I set it down or I look at my work kind of like from far away. I normally, for the bigger projects, I put it on the floor and I step back and I take a look. So I look at what I've just finished, then I look at the graph and I make sure that it looks right and it's looking correct. And then I also look to see if I've made any mistakes. It's easy. It's kind of easy to see if you made a mistake if you're looking at it from far away. This looks pretty good. My counts were all on track. I wasn't off by any. I wasn't short a stitch or have too many left over. And another thing to see, I can see in the comment that what Jen said, Jennifer, remember that whenever you're looking at Lissa's patterns, the question we get asked a lot is which color is your MC and which is your AC? For Lissa's patterns, the MC is always the color on the edge. This is your MC. So if you want your darker color to be MC, you're good, because that's how the graphs are. The darker colors are always on the edge, and that is always your MC. The MC is always the color on the edge of the graph. And I just so happen to also do that with mine. The MC is my darker color, and it's on the edge. So that is always the MC. Now some of Lissa's patterns, and if you notice there's a new cowl coming up, you can actually flip that to where the MC will be your lighter color, and that's completely fine as long as you know which is your MC and which is your AC. But for you know, a lot of the frequently asked questions we get when they look at a pattern, they say which is the MC and which is the AC. The MC in the graph will always be the one on the edge. Okay? All right. I am going to stop here because I think we've covered all the techniques. We've covered how to begin the foundation row, which was this first MC part right here. We covered how to do row 1 when we began with our AC, and this is row 1, this part right here. And then we've gone over what the side stitches are. Oops, sorry, I was off camera. These are side stitches. We've gone over what the inside stitches are, and that would be your AC is your inside stitch. And then we've gone over what is your front of work, which is the correct side or the right side. We've gone over what is your back of work, which is the wrong side. And then we've gone over how to tell the difference between a front stitch This is a front stitch. How to do the front stitch: you go from the front, which is when you're doing the stitches, it is the side always closest to you, front. So you go this way. And you know it's a front stitch because it lays on top of the MC from the previous row. So see how these lay on top of the MC color? So you know these are all front stitches. And we've gone over back stitches. So these right here are back stitches. And the way they're worked is from the back. And when you're doing a front and back stitch, from the back is always away from you. And you would insert your hook from the back like this way, like that. That is from the back, okay? And you also know that these are back stitches because they lay behind the MC in the previous row. And then looking over in this end, oops, this is another inside stitch, and these are side stitches. And these are done by doing your chain 3s or your chain 4s. Okay. And this is the beginning of the cross sample. So after this, so we're going to end this live here because we've covered all the basics. And if you have any questions after this video, after we've concluded, please post them in the comments and we will be sure to answer them. This video will be posted, or it'll be saved, and it will be saved in announcements. And again, you can find the sample cross pattern in all 3 techniques: locking filet crochet, mosaic crochet or mocro, and mosaic knit or mo-knit in Lissa's web store at www.lissaconleydesigns.com. And you can also find that link. It is pinned to announcements. Okay, I hope this helped. And again, this was the sample cross by Lissa Conley. Talk to you all soon.